So our next speaker, he's a program manager for the Google Developer Groups program and other developer communities at Google. He co-founded GDG and helped scale them to one of the largest meetup communities. Then he was also at the launch of the now global Google Business Groups and Google Educator Groups and was lead of several online communities. He has a background in sociology, management, and software engineering. Please give a big CMX welcome to Daniel Franc!
Thank you very much. I have to say this is the best treatment for jet lag I ever got. My energy is back, and I have it like every day that I travel to the US. That's pretty awesome. Thank you for the warm welcome. By the way, I totally understand like the table discussions. Like I was almost late, David was almost late. Like we were sitting at the tables talking with other folks. So I totally encourage you to share with others. I learned so many things here today just from the random encounters. So I came from Prague. There was one lady I met yesterday at the speaker's dinner. She's also from Prague. And you see here? It's pretty unusual to meet like people not just from Europe, but from your little tiny country in Central Europe. And from Prague, yeah, I'm part of Google, the search engine, and a couple other things. And one of our, our mission is to organize the world's information. And developers are a great way to enable the information to come to people. So I'm in developer relations, and one of the core things that we do is working with communities. David teased you that I will be talking about ants. Yes, I will be talking about ants a little bit. By the way, it may be a sad talk because I have to warn you, disclaimer, like some of the myths that you may be thinking that are true about ants, like the childhood myth, they will probably fall down today. So that's a little bit of warning. But don't worry, we'll also be speaking about people. We'll be speaking about what can we learn from the natural systems represented like the ant colonies to build communities, and not just the large or huge communities, but even the small communities. So we'll look at that, and at the end, I will try to distill it into about 4 characteristics that I believe that can be used in different communities. As David said, I've been involved in many, many communities, and I believe that, yeah, the ants can be great teachers. But first, a little bit about the GDGs. It was quite amazing. I even met people here who said, yeah, I was at the GDG meetup. So it's a meetup community. It's not an online community. That's the important part. What GDGs do, organizers organize meetups. There's about 20 meetups every day all around the world. And on meetups, people get together. They have a speaker. They have a beer afterwards in my country, tea in the Middle East. They have a wine before and after event if they are in Italy. But most importantly, they get together. We as Google, we are partners to them. So we don't technically own GDGs. We don't prescribe them what to do. We like to see ourselves and GDGs being partners. Why we do that? For us, the biggest value really lies in helping developers, making the world information universally accessible. We know that there is no way that we in Google can teach every developer the latest technologies. Android O was released a month ago. How do we get this word out? So it's basically developers talking to developers. So that's why we really love working with GDGs. Couple numbers. So in this November, we'll have 10-year anniversary from the first meetup that I happened to run in Prague. The first meetup was a great success. No, I'm kidding. The first meetup, it was a complete disaster. So those of you who are starting communities, don't be put down by the meetup. We had 2 speakers, 6 hostesses, and 4 attendees. And like my co-founder and I, we were looking at each other and we were thinking, well, maybe this Google community wasn't the best idea after all. But we persevered, and what we have now is 10 years of growth, but the DNA is still the same. So many things changed. We changed a lot of things, but the DNA is still the same, meaning it's volunteer run. It's not a marketing or sales tool because of the very early days. I noticed on the Facebook CMX conversation, lots of people were asking, how do we start a community? So I would say, like, whatever you put in the DNA, even on the first meetup, that will stay 10 years later. And we see that in the GDG world. It's massive now. I would say it's everywhere, but Antarctica, it's still untaken. That's a challenge I haven't still So if somebody has some scientist friends who would like to start a little meetup community on a base, we can do that. Other than that, it's anywhere from Polynesia to Southern America, the other way around the globe. Our core community that we are working with are the community organizers. So technically, the way that I do in the program management is I work with these community organizers, and I want to make them successful so that they can build their local communities. When it comes to membership, we don't really track that. It was a very interesting talk in the morning about the membership. Our membership, it's very ad hoc. So whoever comes to the meetup is a temporary member of the GDG community. Still, there are about 500,000 people who say they are members of GDGs on meetup.com. It's everywhere. This is a community in Kathmandu, Nepal. Our main focus is to be really local. I would say hyper-local. You probably know the saying, act locally, think globally, right? So for me, I would say it's act locally and think locally. I mean, like these people in Kathmandu, I have no idea how they can adopt the Google Developer Platform to the needs of developers in Nepal. They know. So I'm not the one that will tell them about how they should adopt the message, how they should show to each other how to work, but they will figure out. So our main focus, and that's one of the things that really, I believe, contributed to the growth we had seen in the past 10 years, is the very much local focus. You may ask, how can we create a global movement from very locally acting communities? And this is something where the ants will come to the play. So let's hold with that a little bit. Now, we are also in the United States, not just Nepal. Together, these communities around the world, they create about 7,000 events, which translates to roughly one event every 20 events every day. They do it, they're volunteers, so they do it for the reasons that some of the speakers mentioned here today. For learning, for connecting, for getting better, for opening up their opportunities. We create them a platform that they can find this success. So platform is a very important part. Today and tomorrow, we have a large summit of all these sub-Saharan organizers in Nairobi. I wish this was live streamed, I could wave at them. But they are really active. The sub-Saharan Africa, it's a fantastic environment for building communities. So if you are looking at global community, go to sub-Saharan Africa. Kenya, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, all these countries are really active. So, but together, they reach the Africans and the Americans and the Nepalese, about 500,000 people, 500,000 developers. I mean, it's not like 100 million members of some of the large online communities. But mind you, these people are meeting face to face. They experience something physically. They get to speak to each other. They experience events like we are having today, just community organized. For us, there is a huge value in these face-to-face encounters. Deathfest, this is one of the, I would say, flagships of the activities that we do, or that we do together with GDGs. It's a conference, a one-day conference. The average number of attendees is about 200. Some of them have 1,000, some of them have 50. But they meet for the whole day, again, like we are meeting today, and they talk about stuff which is important for developers. Again, they are all volunteers. I had seen Deathfests where the organizer group, like here in Algeria, was almost larger than the community. People love doing Deathfests as organizers. There is some adrenaline you get in organizing an event. I guess that's why David is doing these conferences, right? It's the rush. So we, again, want to support these people to have this adrenaline rush and this success. Now, this is the map of how it's looking like now. So you see it's pretty covered. So when we look at how do we grow, how do we spend the next 10 years building this community, it's not really how do we build communities in Sahara or, yes, Antarctica, but it's how to keep this movement evolving. How do we keep improving? How do we keep the organizers being happier and being more empowered to do things? So as David said, I have all kinds of degrees, but none of them taught me that. Like, how do you work with a global human structure like this? And then this is from India, from Goa, and I was observing these ants. And I swear I didn't have any beer, but I totally felt like I'm looking at my communities, like the little chapters and the movement and the chaos and the unpredictability. I was thinking, yes, this is ants. What can we learn from ants? But all what I knew about ants was from the popular literature, right? And I got a feeling that that's probably not what I should take as an inspiration. I mean, the Indian ants, they were not talking at all, like the ants here. So I started studying ants, and it fit a little bit to the study of complex adaptive systems I did, which is very theoretical. It's like physics and chemistry and mathematics combined. I like the ants, that they are like the complex adaptive system in life. So I started reading books. Eventually, I ended up at Stanford University. Most of the people in my team, when you say Stanford, they see computer science. But I went to the School of Biology, where is one of the leading ant researcher in the world, Professor Gordon. I mean, she is incredible. Do you know what this is? This is from her office, this little box. This is a spaceship for ants. She says, I'm shooting ants to the space with NASA in this. So she really knows a thing or two about ants, and we discussed. And the result was that, yes, everything that we know about ants is a myth. So now here is the myth-busting slide I want to show you. So look at this. The white things, it's at least what I believed about ants. The right things is, what's the reality? And we have it researched, backed by Professor Gordon and her books and everybody else. So if you look to the left, to the white ones, it's almost like a traditional company, traditional corporation. They have a CEO, everybody has a role to do. There are like these plans and waterfall that everybody is following. I knew this is not how you want to build a community. And then there is the uncomfortable truth. For example, the Queen. I very much missed, and I will miss the Queen. So it turns out the Queen, actually even the term Queen was invented in the 17th century to justify to people why they need to obey the King and the Queen. And actually what we know about ants is largely a political thing. I grew up in communism. In communism, ants were a big thing because the regime was telling us, you have to work and you have to have discipline. Like the ants. There were books for kids I loved about this. Now, it's gone. The ants, 30 of them is doing nothing. I asked Professor Gordon, I told her, but the ants, at least everybody does the same thing. They're like the simple biological engines. And she says, no. Like the ants, they can get so confused or lazy or bored. Like everybody walks for this insect, and there are like ants which walk the other way. But they have like alignment. But still, if you look at the red things, it's really at least how the GDGs function. We have people who just do nothing, who wait. And why not? We have very flat structure, no bosses. The whole system is unpredictable. So the question was, how can we learn from this? Because this is nice, but I need to convert it to the practice. Let me skip this slide and go here. So there are two models which are useful. And if you use the search engine thingy that David mentioned, you can look at the word chaos. Anybody knows what that means? It's from two words. Chaos and order, exactly. So chaos is a big term. There are even terms like chaotic organizations. So maybe if you get frustrated in your company that it's a little bit of chaos, maybe the company is just chaotic, that there is some chaos, some order. So one theory says that if you sort of dance on the edge between chaos and order, you can achieve incredible results, like giving people the freedom and let them do whatever they want, but give them some structure to function in that. And I could build my whole presentation just about chaos. But a little bit more guiding is the complex adaptive system theory. Again, look it up. I will not bore you with theories. Actually, I did it about 3 years ago at a conference for community managers in London. There are about like 16 parameters of a complex adaptive systems. I mean, they're beautiful. If you adapt every single of them, the community will work. But that was long and boring. So there are four principles I want to share with you. Number one, it's all about it's called agents in the CAS theory. You need to have the right people. This is the alpha and omega. Like nothing else really matters. For the community, and again, we have heard it so many times here today, You need people who want to belong, who want to find a tribe. Somebody asked me yesterday, developers, engineers, they really want to talk to each other? Well, actually, they do. Communities, meetup communities are the #1 source for their learning. They want to find their tribe. Second, they want to get better. So you want people who want to find out from other people what they can do. And finally, you want people who feel like fighting for a higher cause or make a contribution. I believe there are some people from Mozilla communities with us today. Mozilla is fantastic for that. Like Mozilla, it's almost a religion, and now, big pardon to Mozilla people, but I see this as a compliment. There is such a big cause for this community. Once you have the right people, we have to build the ant colony for them. We have to ensure the DNA sort of guides people what to do, because there is no boss telling them. There is no queen, nobody to tell them what to do. So it's the culture which needs to guide them. How do I make a decision about this event? How do I make a decision about working with other organizers? So for us as partners, as the platform providers, we would say, we really care of making sure that the culture is maintained, that the brand of the community, when you say Google developer groups, developers, software engineers, they would pretty much know what that means. They would know what it means to organize the meetup. And that's really important, because you want the brand to be self-selective. There is nothing like interviews. Like, the community is very open for the organizers. You want to ensure that they still get the value from that. By the way, this word fun, I don't hear it so much on this conference today. It's a little bit surprising. Even though, as I know many of you personally, your communities are so much about fun. We have to stop being ashamed of the word fun. Like, without fun, people will not function in your communities. Fun is a super important piece. Like, people want to get value in a fun environment. Again, there are so many talks and examples from the political parties, real world. I will skip for it. And finally, the ants, yeah, they have some resources. So the same way, your community organizers or community members, they have to know, how do I get my resources? How do I collaborate with others? What are the expectations of the resource provider? So we as Google, we ask, for example, our organizers to send us a little bit of information every month about the events they did. So for example, that's the system. So this is the first thing. So now we put our little ants to the colony. We need to do 3 more things with them. We need to let them connect and interact all the time. The ants are communicating every 20 seconds. For us in the communities, people talk a lot. Sometimes community managers get frustrated. Well, the nature teaches us that the more the merrier, actually, because it's from the interactions that you get the emergence, which we'll be talking about on the end. What's important for this communication are 2 things. One, there must be no vertical barriers. So no bosses and middle management and upper management and whatever structures. Sometimes you have countries where this is important, but we really try, even if they set up some structure like this, to make sure that the structure is very sort of fluid. The same goes for the peer-to-peer communication. So we try to make it available for everyone to talk to everyone. Yes, it's lots of chaos. Here we are on the K part. But again, it's very important. And finally, people must feel comfortable and safe in these interactions. So we put a huge value on making sure that people feel included, people feel safe, people feel trusted, people feel trusting. So that's very important. OK, so we have the agents, or ants, or organizers. We have them interacting. So what happens next? Next is the action. And that's really what matters. These are some Czech organizers. They do a bar camp and conference every 3 months to talk about what they experienced in the past 3 months. There are actually about 60 of them. This is just one of the groups. And they are very open. They say about what didn't go right. Actually, they have an annual award, the Fail of the Year. It's a very prestigious award. The guy who won it 3 years ago, the next year became like the country mentor or coordinator. So when you win this award, that means you really push the envelope. You risk, you try, you go ahead. So you need to be really open here and let people, like the ants, like Professor Gordon says, yeah, 20% of the activities, it's a complete disaster. Yes. And finally, you want to see emergence. For us as partners, this is very important. We want to see chapters emerging. We want to see new organizers emerging. We want to see new events emerging. I was mentioning Deathfest. Deathfest is community pretty much invented and emerged activity that we highlighted, that we let the other organizers to join. Sometimes branded communities, the partners really step in and try to sell stuff or prescribe the communities. My role in Google is to make sure this doesn't happen, that we really treat the GDGs as our partners. And we may seed, we may give them a content to use. We may offer them an activity event and format to use. But that's just an offer, that's the seeding. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we can learn from ants, I believe, can be summarized into this one slide. I was looking at it so many times, I felt it's trivial. But then I decided, yes, let's look at it hoping that it's trivial. And then thinking like, how do we get the right people and give them the culture and system to be successful, whatever success means for them? How do we make them reflect, give feedback, act very freely in a super fluid network, which leads to emergence? So I would say the whole secret of our success lies on this unfortunately trivial slide, but fortunately easy to adopt. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.